Hello, everybody. How y'all doing? So this is 8-1 ratios and proportions. It's a new chapter. It's all on similarity. So we're going to be looking at similar shapes, and to be able to do that, we first need to cover ratios and proportions. So looking at the check skills, you'll need up here simplify ratio 2 out of 4.5. 8 out of 12, well, that simplifies down to 2 out of 3, or 0.66. 6 out of 8, 3 out of 4, or 0.75. 10 out of 10, anything over itself is 1. Okay, when it's written like this, 20 with a colon 30, that means 20 to 30, it's a ratio. 20 over 30, we can cross out the zeros, that would be 2/3. An 8 to 2 ratio is it's the same thing. If you take out a 2, it's 4 to 1. So it's a 4 to 1 ratio. A 2 to 8 ratio would be 1 to 4. A 12 to 9 ratio, if we were to simplify that, we can take out 3s, that'd be 4 to 3. Draw a triangle and draw its 3 mid-segments to form a smaller triangle. How do the lengths of the sides of the smaller triangle compare to the lengths of the sides of the larger one? Okay. So we're talking about this. Here's our outer triangle. If I drew it from the mid-segments, that means that each of these is 1/2 the length of the outer triangle. So we're looking at a 1 to 2 ratio. This would be the smaller, this would be the larger, 1 to 2 ratio. Alright, so let's get into it. A ratio is a comparison of two quantities. You can write the ratio of A to B, or use A colon B as the quotient, A over B. B cannot equal 0. Unless otherwise stated, the terms and expressions appearing in ratios in this book are assumed to be non-zero. So let's look at an example here. So a photo that is 8 inches wide and 5 1/3 inches high is enlarged to a poster. So it's enlarged, so this photo here, it's going to be enlarged to a poster. So let me just write 8 inches down here, and then 5 1/3 up there. It's enlarged to a poster that is 2 feet wide and 1 1/3 foot high. What is the ratio of the width of the photo to the width of the poster? Alright, so we're just looking at width here. So that would be these base numbers. So we need ratio. So anytime you're working with ratios, you need the same units. So I need to convert this, the feet, to inches. So we're looking at 8 inches over 2 feet. I'm going to convert that to 8 inches over 24 inches, and then I can simplify that on down. We're looking at a 1 to 3 ratio. You can write it like this: 1 colon 3, or 1 to 3. Okay. So notice how the smaller number went on top. Okay. So just for to get everyone on the same page, usually you want to use the smaller number first. Okay. What is the ratio of the height? So this would be the check understanding is down here. This is width. Let's look at height. What is the ratio of the picture's height to the poster's height? So this is 5 1/3 inches, and it's being compared to 1 1/3 feet. So what I'll do here is I'll change this into I'll change it into an improper fraction. 5 1/3 inches, that's the same as 16/3 inches, and that's going to be over 1 1/3 feet. So I need to convert that first to inches. So a foot is 12 inches, a third of a foot is 4 inches. So add those two together, you have 16 inches. So we're looking at 16 over 3 inches to 16 inches. Let's go ahead and simplify that. So if I'm working with a bunch of, this is called a compound fraction, I can multiply by the reciprocal on the bottom. So we do 16 over 3 times 1 over 16. And then those cancel out. So it looks like a 1 to 3 ratio. Okay, that makes sense. So the width here was 1 to 3, and the height was also 1 to 3. So it's a nice even blow up. Okay, they didn't get any of the dimensions wrong, and they did that. Okay, go ahead and turn the page. Okay, a proportion is a statement that two ratios are equal. You can write a proportion in these forms. So we have A to B is equal to C over D. And we can also do A to B is equal to C to D. Okay, the reason why we're doing this is A and C might not necessarily be the same numbers, but when we simplify them, they might be. Okay, so for example, A could be 1 and B could be 3. C could be 8 and D could be 24. They're actually equal to each other, but their numbers are different. That's exactly what this thing is saying right here. So we have properties of proportions. Properties of proportions, key concept. So A over B is equal to C over D is equivalent to a whole bunch of stuff here. AD equals BC. Okay, this would be if I cross multiplied this. Cross multiply AD equals BC. That's number 1. Number 2 is BA equals B over A equals D over C. Here we just flip these upside down. That's a totally valid maneuver. 3 says A over C is equal to B over D. Okay, A over C is equal to B over D. Okay, off the top of my head, I'm not really sure what they did here. I believe they divided both by the same number. But let's just roll with it. We can get more into it as we see more examples. And then number 4, A plus B over B is equal to C plus D over D. Okay, since since we're adding, basically B over B is just saying 1. I'm adding 1 to both here. Okay, D over D would also be the same. It's like saying 1. So if I add 1 to each side, they still hold. Okay, so looking at number 1, that was called the cross product property. The product of the extremes is equal to the product of the means. I've never heard that in my life. I call it cross multiplying. That's what most people call it. So let's check it out here. Use an example. If x over y equals 5 over 6, complete each statement. Alright, so A says 6x equals what? Okay, so what they did here is they multiplied x times 6. X times 6 is 6x. So what we're doing is we're multiplying across. So let me show you how I think about it in my head. I just draw lines across like that to make it cross. cross product property, or cross multiply. 6 times x is equal to 5 times y. Okay, that's a true statement. B, y over x is equal to what? Okay, so what they did here is they took this bit right here and then they divided some parts. Basically what they did here is they flipped it upside down. So y over x, that's x over y, but it's a reciprocal of that. They flipped it upside down. That's equal to 6 over 5. Okay, so this is still a true statement. Why? Well, let's see if I cross multiply these. 6 times x equals y times 5. They're still equal to each other. Next one says x over 5 is equal to what? X over 5 is equal to y over 6. And then lastly, we have x plus y over y is equal to what? Okay, so what's going on here? I have x over y, I've added y, that's like saying I'm adding 1. I have 5 over 6. If I add the bottom, it's like saying I'm adding 1. So I'm adding a 6 onto that. Okay. So let's solve for variables. Okay, so we're going to solve each proportion. We have x over 5 is equal to 12 over 7. I'm going to solve for x. What I can do here is cross multiply. So I have 7x equals 5 times 12, which is 60. And then I'll solve for x. X equals 60 divided by 7. 7's prime, so you're done. Next one, I have y plus 3 over 8 equals y over 4. You can use the cross product property again. I'm going to multiply across just like this. 4 times y plus 3 equals 8 times y. Then we'll distribute. 4y plus 12 equals 8y. Then I'll minus. 12 equals 4y. And then I'll divide. Y equals 3. Let's look at another example. 5 over z equals 20 over 3. I'll cross multiply. 15 equals 20z. Divide by 20. 15 over 20 equals z. I can take out 5's. Z equals 3 over 4. If you were to plug that back into there, it would be the same answer. Look at one more over here. 18 over n plus 6 equals 6 over n. I'll cross multiply. 18n equals 6 times n plus 6. Distribute. 18n equals 6n plus 36. Move the 6n to the other side. 12n equals 36. Divide by 12, n equals 3. Alright, so the main thing here, the new concept, is this cross multiplication. That's what we're doing when we're solving for variables. Go flip the page. Just have one more example for this. In a scale drawing, the scale compares each length in the drawing to the actual length. The lengths used in a scale can be different units. A scale might be written as 1 inch to 100 miles, 1 inch equals 12 feet, or 1 millimeter. It compares to 1 meter. You can use proportions to find the actual dimensions represented in a scale drawing. Okay, the main area you're going to see this is on a map. If you have a map that's about this big, okay, and it represents the state of California, then it would say something like 1 inch on the map equals 50 miles in reality. Another example would be like if you had a little toy figurine, and on the box when you got the toy figurines it says 2 inches, so say the figurine is 2 inches, is proportionate to 6 feet for real life. So that would make sense. The figurine represents a real life person, a 6-foot person, so 2 inches is equal to 6 feet. So that's the scale. Okay, so let's look at this example. So we have a drawing here. This is like a blueprint. Okay. I'm not sure if you guys have worked with blueprints yet. Maybe like you're going to rent an apartment or something, and you go online and it looks something like this. So this is the bedroom. Here we have the kitchen, and here's the bath, and then out here we have the living room. Okay, so this is like your little apartment, bedroom, kitchen, bath, living room. This is some kind of hallway. These are doors. Okay, so this little arc that's like the door swinging out. This is the actual door. So if you were to walk in, this would be like your right hand is the handle, and it swings out to the right. And then it looks like the bath, the handle is on your left hand, it swings out to the left. Okay, it's so the question says measure the dimensions of the bedroom in the scale drawing. Use those dimensions to find the actual dimensions of the bedroom. So we have a scale here. 1 inch is equal to 16 feet. So 1 inch on this drawing here is equal to 16 feet. Use a ruler. Oh, well. Okay, so since I drew this, it's not totally exact. So let's go ahead and I'm going to show you this. Okay, they actually had a ruler. If you were to place a ruler on this, they found that the length here, the width, this is 7/8 inches, and the height is 5/8. So this length here was 7/8 inches, and this height here was 5/8. Okay, and we know that 1 inch is equal to 16 feet. So let's make a proportion here. A proportion. So 1 inch equal to 16 feet. And I'm going to figure out how long the actual apartment is. So I don't know how long it is. This is going to be my width, or my length. And out here I have my height. I don't know how deep the apartment is. So this is saying that the apartment is 7/8 inches. I don't know how many feet that is. And that the apartment is 5/8 inches deep. I don't know how long that is in feet. So let's go ahead and solve this. Let's use the cross product property. We're gonna cross multiply. So 1x equals 16 times 7/8. Over here, this will be 1y equals 16 times 5/8. and then multiply out. We get 14 feet. And over here we get y equals 10 feet. So the actual dimensions are 14 feet by 10 feet. Okay. Just looking at this, the more realistic way of doing it, 1 inch is equal to 16 feet. So what I could have done right here is just multiplied this by 16 at the get-go, because it's 1 to 16, or 1 by 16. Anytime you hear the word by, you know just to multiply. So if you were to multiply this 7/8 inch by 16 feet, and this 5/8 inch by 16 feet, you would get your answer right there. Which makes sense. Why? Because, well, the width we said was 14 feet. That was a 1 to 16 ratio. So I took 7/8 and I multiplied by 16. I got 14. So that totally makes sense because 7/8 is really close to 1. 1 inch. So if this were 1 inch, it would be 16 feet, right? Well, it's almost 1. It's 7/8. So that means that your actual dimensions should be close to 16. So we got 14. And then over here, this was close to this is close to half an inch. Half of 16 is 8. So when I took 5/8 and I multiplied it by the 16, I got the 10, which is close to 8. Okay, so that's just thinking your way through the problem, because you're not always going to remember how. Like when you're walking into an apartment and you go, oh, it's a 1 to 16 ratio, like the realtor tells you that, you're not going to think to yourself, oh, I remember the equation for that. It was a ratio and I cross multiply and use algebra to solve it. You're not going to remember how to do that. I'm just telling you guys, you want to think these things through. It's a 1 to 16, therefore you got to multiply stuff by 16 to get the answer. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Hope I didn't confuse you too much with the diatribe at the end there. And I'll post a tutorial video next. See you guys later. Bye.